I want to show you the 3 plugins that I use to make space on a stereo 2-track instrumental for my vocals when rough mixing. Let's jump into the video. What is up, my friend? Jacob here with another video to help you record better, mix better, and work better. Today I want to show you 3 main plugins that I use on a day-to-day basis when doing rough mixes with vocals and a stereo 2-track instrumental. What's challenging about mixing with a stereo instrumental is the fact that the music is already so compressed and limited to the point where it's hard to kind of sculpt space for a vocal to sit on top of that stereo mix. So I want to show you a few plugins that you can use to make space for that vocal. But before we jump in, I want to tell you about something very special. If you're just getting started in audio and you're not sure what to buy or how much it costs, I have written up a free PDF gear guide with a bunch of different options of what you need to buy to start recording yourself or recording your clients. I give you a lot of different options at different price points to really help you get started. Again, the PDF is absolutely free. Go pick it up. Go to www.mixwithjacob.com/gear guide. Let's jump into the video. Here I have a song called Riverside by Sarah Diamond. The album is out. I'll put a link down in the description so you can go check that out. This is just a rough mix that I had going after the tracking session that I did with Sarah. Let me start by playing back some of the tracks so you can hear what it sounds like. Nice. So the challenge here is the 2-track instrumental is compressed, it's very limited, and it doesn't have much space for that vocal to sit. So what I'm gonna do is show you 3 plugins that I like to use to kind of create that space. The first plugin we're gonna look at is the FabFilter Pro MB. And we're gonna use this in sidechain mode. So the first thing you're gonna wanna do is go to your key input and set a bus input. Let's use bus 10, doesn't matter which one. Whatever works. And on the vocal track here, I have my all vocal bus. I'm gonna put that same bus for the sidechain input, bus 10. We're gonna do full send. Now let's go back to our Pro MB and we're gonna create 2 bands. We're gonna create a band kind of between 150 and 2K, and then another band just above 2K until maybe about 10. And we could always kind of modify this as we play with it, but usually this is a good starting point. So I'm gonna start by setting the range not too intense. Let's do like -4-ish for both these bands. And what you're gonna need to do is click on each of the bands, open this expert tab, and you're gonna select external input. And this is gonna make sure those bands are looking for sidechain input from that bus that we routed just a second ago. Now let me play back the vocal as it is now with the settings default. You can see this top end is maybe a little intense. The low end seems to be nice and smooth. So let me just modify the threshold a little bit in that top end. Just want to do a little bit less. That's nice. And you see when she's singing kind of in a low kind of frequency range, it's not really activating in that top end, which is nice. You don't want it to kind of over compress on that instrumental. So first thing I'm gonna do is make sure the attack is set quite fast because I want it to really grab that vocal as soon as she starts singing. And then the release, I'd like to set it quite slow so that it's kind of bouncing with the rhythm of her vocal, just so that it's compressing only when she's singing, and when she's not singing, the instrumental kind of comes back at full force. So that looks nice. In that low band, it's not too intense. It's releasing with the vocal. Let's do the same kind of process in that top. Kind of the same speed. Nice. So you see it's very subtle, kind of transparent, and it's just kind of making a little hole kind of for that vocal to sit, but dynamically. So when she's not singing, the instrumental stays exactly the same. Let's bypass it so you can hear without. And I know that people can change, but I'm not gonna wait for the day that you call me and say you're mine. Now it's on. I got my head on straight, so don't you waste my time. It's very subtle, but you could hear that it's kind of digging a little hole for the vocal to sit, and it's making things sound a little more natural as far as like the mix itself, the cohesion of everything together. Let me show you the second plugin option that you could use for this method, and that is the Waves C6. And you want to make sure to grab the Waves C6 sidechain. And we're going to do kind of a similar move. I'm going to bypass some of the bands that I don't need. I'll use these two middle ones here. And let's use the similar frequency ranges between 64 to 1K and then 1K and above to maybe like 5K or something like that. And we're going to do similar amounts of compression. I don't want to compress more than like 4 dB, 5 dB in those ranges because I want it to remain still natural. I don't want the instrumental to pump. Let's start with that, and let's make sure we have our bus selected on the sidechain input, which is bus 10. And we're going to flip these two bands that we're using to external. So now these bands are looking for external input from the sidechain input. And let's play back. So you see the threshold is fully open, so it's not doing any compression. Let's bring it down slowly until we see it start to dance. Nice. Same thing with the top end. Let's go back a bit. So you see, this is kind of a good amount of compression. It's not too intense. We just need to mess with those attack and release times again. So the attack times are nice. I find they're grabbing the vocal exactly when it needs to grab. And the release times are a little fast. Let's bring them to maybe like 60, 50, somewhere in that range. Maybe a little slower. You're just looking for, you're just kind of looking for those compression bands to work with the vocal where, like, as soon as she stops singing in those frequencies, you want it to pull back up. You don't want it to release too quickly because then you get the sound of pumping, but you don't want it to release too slowly so the instrumental is not kind of EQ'd all the time, right? So you got to find that sweet spot with the attack and release times. Here, I think I got something nice with the C6. The top end is compressing a little too much. Nice. And what this technique allows you to do is actually have the instrumental just a little bit louder. If you weren't using this method, maybe your instrumental would just be quieter. You know, it wouldn't be hitting as hard. But because you're using this method, you can bring that instrumental up and the vocal still kind of sits inside without getting buried too much. Now the third plugin, which is my favorite that I want to show you for this method, literally designed for this purpose specifically. It's very similar to what a soothe would do, but with sidechain. And it's literally the perfect thing for this method. It's called Track Spacer by Waves Factory. Now let's go and set our key input once again, which is bus 10. And let's start with ratio at 0% because this thing, it is quite intense. You'll see even at 6, 7, 8%, it's going to be compressing those frequencies at like 20 dB. So you want to be very light with this. I like to filter out the low end. I don't want it to kind of be compressing anything below 100 Hertz with this. And the top end, you could kind of filter as it's playing back. Usually I like to have it sit around 10K. I don't need it to do any compression in 10K because there's not too much vocal information up there anyways. So let's play back this vocal and see kind of what ratio percentage seems to work best. You can see in this little blue line, it's showing us the exact frequencies of this vocal, which is kind of nice to see. It's always fun to have that visual. And as I bring up the ratio, you see already at 6%, it's compressing more than enough. At its most, it's compressing 15 dB, but it's so transparent that you almost don't even notice, which is fantastic. My sweet spot I usually like for this application is 5%. Let's exaggerate it so you hear kind of what it's doing. Let me go back. So you can see it's just way too intense. 28%, look how much it's compressing. 40 dB. Sorry. I like compression, but not that much. I like 6%. It's just enough to make space. Super transparent, because as soon as she stops singing, it's right back, you know? It's almost like having a quick attack and release, but way more natural than using a multiband like Pro MB or a C6, for example. And this track spacer could also be used for other applications. Like, for example, if in a very dense mix, you have a rim shot that needs to cut through the rest of your drums or cut through all your synths, then you could use track spacer on your instrument bus and sidechain that rim shot to the instrument bus. And it kind of ducts out and makes space for that rim. So very practical, very useful plugin. But specifically for this application, mixing vocals to a 2-track, it's like, bar none, the best that I've used. And that's it for the 3 plugins that I would use for this application. You could also use EQ, but the thing with EQ is once you sculpt out those frequencies, they stay sculpted out. So it can work, but I don't find it's as natural. For example, you could use a FabFilter Pro Q and just kind of sculpt out that same frequency range that I was doing with the compressors. Something like this, right? And here you're making room for that vocal. Because it's not moving with the vocal dynamically, when she's not singing, the instrumental stays EQ'd, which for me is a less natural sound. And that is it for this week's video. Those are my 3 plugins that I like to use to mix vocals to 2-track or stereo instrumentals. What this method with these plugins allows you to do is create space for the vocal in a very dense instrumental mix, allowing you to get louder, but still have your vocals be very clear and fit inside that mix. So that's it for today's video. I want to thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and let me know down below in the comments, what techniques do you use to mix your vocals to stereo instrumentals? Are there any secret plugins that you're using? I always like new tools, I like new techniques, so let me know down below in the YouTube comments. Once again, thank you so much for watching. I will see you next week. Peace.